The logical basis of tendency and coincidence evidence is essentially inferential in nature, as we are looking at past conduct or past events to determine guilt in relation to current proceedings. Let's take a look at a couple of quick examples. Say we have this gentleman here, charged with common assault. The basis of the current assault is that, following a loss at a cricket match, this gentleman punched a member of the opposing team. Although he's not on trial for the following matters, we also have evidence that 1 year earlier, following a loss in a soccer match, he punched the goalkeeper of the other team right in the face. And further, just 6 months earlier, he's punched his friend right in the face because he lost to him in a game on Xbox. Essentially, if we're to engage in tendency reasoning, we're asking ourselves, does the conduct of the accused after the soccer match, in addition to his conduct with his friend after losing on Xbox, indicate a tendency or propensity to act in a particular way or have a particular state of mind that is somehow relevant to the determination of guilt for the charge that he is currently facing? What tendency do you think we could extract from these previous events, and how is it potentially relevant to his current charge of common assault? Coincidence reasoning employs a similar logical approach. So let's take the same accused. Instead of being charged with common assault, let's assume he's been charged with arson. The facts of this particular charge are such that he's alleged to have set fire to the car belonging to a member of the opposite cricket team after a particularly humiliating loss. And again, there is other evidence to suggest that, whilst he has not been charged or convicted for the following events, he does seem to have a strange association with such things occurring. Just 6 months earlier, after losing in a particularly humiliating fashion in a game of soccer, the opposing team's goalkeeper's car was subsequently found on fire. And in fact, just 1 month earlier, his friend's car was found to have been set on fire, which, strangely enough, happened to occur shortly after the accused had lost a game on Xbox to his friend. What coincidence reasoning is asking is that on the basis of the similarities between these incidences, how likely is it that the accused's presence or the accused's involvement was simply just a coincidence? If we reject the probability of coincidence, then we can reason that the accused's presence was most likely due to his involvement. And if we can prove the improbability of coincidence, then, if relevant, it somehow informs our determination of guilt for the current matter. In other words, tendency reasoning is asking us to demonstrate a displayed tendency on the basis of past behaviour or state of mind, and that this somehow informs a determination in the current charge. With coincidence, we're looking at the improbability of coincidence between two or more past events, and that this improbability somehow informs our current charge. Let's take a look at some examples in greater depth. Meet Patrick. He's been charged with breaking and entering and committing a serious indictable offence under Section 112 of the Crimes Act. Specifically, it is alleged that he broke into a house, stole a series of electrical goods, including a television and DVD player, and subsequently broke out. Patrick, for his part, is completely denying the allegations, saying simply that it was not him. Apart from the evidence surrounding the circumstances in which the breaking and entering occurred, there is additional evidence that the Crown wishes to adduce at trial. Unfortunately for Patrick, he has 2 previous larceny convictions. 1 for stealing clothing from a shopping centre, and 2 from stealing mobile phones from the same shopping centre. Further, although he's never been charged or convicted of this subsequent event, his neighbour is willing to give evidence of an unproven allegation where Patrick is alleged to have stolen an outdoor heating unit from his backyard. So we have these 4 separate incidences that the Crown wishes to lead in order to prove a tendency. We have 1, the conviction for larceny of clothing, 2, the conviction for larceny of the mobile phones, and 3, the outdoor heating unit that he is allegedly has stolen, and 4, the current charge for which he's standing trial, the breaking and entering and stealing of the TV and DVD player. So if we wish to lead this as tendency evidence, we can follow a sequential approach. 1. Identify what is the tendency we seek to prove and how is it relevant. 2. Look to section 97 in order to apply the relevant tests. 3. Apply the actual test. Does it have significant probative value? 4. Look to the case law to aid our determination of whether or not it has significant probative value. Is it a general versus specific tendency? Look at the context in which these previous incidences occurred. One is a retail context, another is a home. What about the items that were stolen? Clothing versus electronic goods, etc., etc. And finally, if you come to the conclusion that it has significant probative value, you still have the additional hurdle of section 101. Now let's take a look at Danny. Danny is charged with destroying or damaging property by means of fire under section 195(1)(b). The incident in question allegedly occurred following a heated argument between Danny and his girlfriend, which occurred inside of her house. The Crown alleges that following the argument, Danny later returned to his girlfriend's house at night time and, using a bucket filled with methylated spirits, set fire to her garage. Danny denies this and instead claims that he returned to his girlfriend's house later that night with the intention of apologising when, in the dark, he saw a figure wearing a balaclava set fire to his girlfriend's garage and subsequently run away. Unfortunately for Danny, he seems to have had an association with events similar to this in the past. In fact, the last 3 jobs that Danny was dismissed from, each of them was subsequently subject to fire damage. Following his dismissal from his factory job, the place was subsequently set on fire with the accelerant identified as methylated spirits. After he was fired from his job at the paint factory, it too was subject to an arson attack, with the accelerant subsequently identified as being paint stripper. And his most recent workplace, just 3 months ago, after being fired from his work as a mechanic, the garage suffered extensive fire damage, with an accelerant identified as being unleaded petrol. However, fortunately for Danny, in none of these incidences were charges ever laid against him due to a lack of evidence. However, Danny is also subject to a current investigation stemming from an insurance claim he recently made, where his motorbike was found to have been set on fire with the accelerant identified as unleaded petrol. So, let's see if we can apply a coincidence analysis across these incidences. Across all of them, we have the similar circumstance of fire damage. Across 2 incidences, we have the damage being caused by methylated spirits. 1 of them, paint stripper, and 2 of them from unleaded petrol. Again, the first step is to ask, does this evidence possess significant probative value? And in order to address this, we need to look to those factors contained in Section 98 of the Evidence Act. What of the similarities between these events? What about potential innocent explanations? What about the circumstances in which they occurred, etc., etc.? And once you've accepted that it does in fact possess significant probative value, you need to assess the prejudicial effect of the evidence with regards to Section 101.